He covers the Browns for the Chronicle-Telegram. All of his work can be read on brownszone.com. Great site for Browns coverage. He's Mr. Scott Petrak. Hello, Scott.
What's going on, fellas?
You tell us. How are you?
I'm good, thanks.
Good.
All right, and where are you playing today? Will you tell us if you can? Do you want to? It's up to you.
Doesn't want a crowd.
You don't want a gallery?
Seneca.
I'm
There
sorry.
you go.
You don't want patrons? Sorry.
That's fine. I don't mind.
Seneca.
Doesn't mind patrons. That's good. So, in an exercise just to make my coworkers mad, I put together, and we haven't done it yet, but it's coming up, the best draft choices of the Andrew Berry era. We've gone over the worst.
It's a pamphlet.
Are there can't be any worse picks, and I guess pick your order, based on what they passed up than Jed Wills or Anthony Schwartz. Can there be? I mean, you passed up Tristan Wirfs and Amon-Ra St. Brown at the same positions.
Yeah, I think you're right. You know, Wills is a little complicated because he did start some games, and I thought he was better than people gave him credit.
I agree with you on that.
Right, but he's still the number 10 pick. They could have gotten worse. He doesn't get a second contract. Schwartz had no impact. Wasted a third-round pick. So, the number 10 thing is why Wills is in that discussion. So I would listen to both. I think those guys are both. That's probably 1-2. David Bell wasn't a great pick, but he got hurt and he made some plays that you can remember. I'll tell you what, though, when you go for the good side, until last year, there was some slim pickings there too.
Yeah, guess what? I came up with 12 just to make Andy mad.
It's okay.
12 good ones?
Yeah,
majority of them have to be coming from last
year. We'll send
year.
them to you so you can have a laugh later.
Yeah, please.
Right, so why did he hit last year? What was the difference last year compared to all the? And it's hard for me not to say Paul DePodesta, but I mean, and I say that based on not knowing what Paul DePodesta does. But you have to ask yourself, why was he successful last year compared to every other year before?
Well, it's a great question, Andy. And I asked him that at the combine, and I didn't love his answer.
What was
his answer was they had better. I'm paraphrasing, but better resources, right? They had 2 picks in the first round, or a pick in the first round, more at the top of the second, right? As opposed to those other years where they just traded away those first and second round picks. So you're not going to draft as well. So there is some credence to that theory, right? But I don't think it can be only that, right? Because it's not like they had a ton of success in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th rounds. And it feels like last year they had some success as you went through the draft too. So
everybody started last year. That's
right,
the first time he's had that.
Right. Harold Fant was a 3rd-round pick. And they've had 3rd-round picks. And, Martin Emerson Jr. was a good 3rd-round pick. He might be the best pick before last season. But, was he Harold Fant? Maybe. I mean, maybe as a rookie they both had the same impact. But I'm going to try to ask Andrew again on Thursday if he can give me a little more insight, because if that's the only reason, then I'm not sure that that's sustainable, right? But if you said, hey, we had this piece of data, or we got this new scout that we like, whatever, then you can say you can build on that going forward. If it's just a matter of having more draft picks or better draft picks, I don't know if that's sustainable, or even if I'm buying that is a reason.
Scott Petrak joining us, Chronicle-Telegram, brownszone.com. The thing that scares me most about the guys that we think are the worst 2 picks, Schwartz and Wills, based on where Jed was taken and all that stuff, is those are the 2 areas that when they went into the offseason thinking we have to get better at wide receiver and we have to get better on the offensive line. And those are the 2 biggest swings and misses, I think, other than maybe a quarterback trade, to quote Jimmy Haslam, that they've had. And I find it hard to have confidence in their ability to identify an offensive lineman and especially identify a wide receiver.
Yeah, I think that's warranted, Jeff. I really do. Now, if you're trying to play devil's advocate or be positive, you can counter with they haven't taken a receiver above the 3rd round. So it's not like you're drafting an elite receiver, or it's not like they've drafted an elite receiver and been wrong about it. And after Wills, I don't think they've drafted an offensive lineman before the 3rd round, right? Zack Zinter. And, right now that looks like a miss. So they haven't spent premium resources on those 2 positions in the draft. But I completely get your point, Jeff, and I think that is reason to be a little bit concerned because I'm still assuming that those are going to be the first two positions that they take in this draft.
Scott, you mentioned Zack Zinter. Here's a guy who's 6'6", 300 pounds. I mean, he's got the build. Do you think he's still a possibility here as a guy who can step in and actually be a real contributor on the offensive line? Or do you think that's a miss and it's not coming back?
No, I think he's in the mix, right? Depending on who they had in the draft, depending on where they play Elton Jenkins, I could see Jenkins, the other Jenkins, Tevin Jenkins, Luke Whippler, and Zack Zinter going for two spots, right? So you have Zion Johnson at one guard, you have Titus Howard at right tackle, you have, let's assume they draft a left tackle. So then you got those four guys for center and right guard. And Elton Jenkins will take one of those spots, but could he move to center and you play Zinter at guard? Like, I still think that's a possibility. He just hasn't shown enough, right? He didn't get on the field much at all. When he was not impressive. I think he works hard. Everybody says he's a good kid. So I don't know why he hasn't had the success. Some guys it takes longer. I wouldn't rule him out, but I certainly think if they thought that he was ready to be a day one starter, then they would have added one fewer guy. So they are not assuming that he's ready to fill in as a starter.
All right, let me ask you this, because we talked about this at the beginning of the show. Dan Graziano said that the Browns are more likely to extend Myles Garrett than to trade him. I'm not 100% buying what Dan said. I'm just curious what you think.
Yeah, I think you can say that if you believe that they're not going to trade him, right? So if you think it's a 2% chance that they trade him, and I'm just throwing a number out there, then yeah, it would be more likely that he gets some kind of pay bump, right? So I don't think Dan is off on that. I think there is a small chance that the Browns trade Myles Garrett after June 1st or between June 1st and the season starting based on how they think the team is, based on if Myles is happy or not. If behind the scenes Myles is asking to get out, maybe that changes the organization's approach to this. Mm-hmm. But I do believe them when they say they have no plans and don't want to trade him. I don't think that's changed from last year. I think that's consistent. We've talked about it. I don't think it's the right move to trade Myles, and I know plenty of people disagree with me. But that's how I feel, and that's how they feel. So if the stance is they're not going to trade him, then, yeah, I would say some kind of extension or pay bump would be more likely too.
If you trade him, it screams rebuild. But right now, doesn't it look like a rebuild? They're just not screaming it?
Yeah, I mean, I completely get what you're saying, right? There's certainly a roster transformation, right? They've been scared or not, I don't know. They don't want to use the word rebuild, right?
Yeah, they don't.
So let's call it a roster transformation. That went into effect last year. But they haven't torn down the defense at all, right? So if you still think you have a top 5 defense and you can improve on offense, it's not outlandish to think you can go from 5 to 9 wins, right? They should have won more games last year than they did. So if you get better quarterback play, better receiver play, better offensive line play, then why not win 9 games? If you win 9 games, then it's fun. Then you're in the conversation.
Yeah.
Then you don't have to worry about Myles not being happy, right? So Jimmy Haslam does not have the appetite for a rebuild, and I think he's made that clear. And he said at the owners' meetings, and I completely agree with him, and that's why one of the reasons I wouldn't trade Myles is when they think they're going to be good, whenever that is, 27, 28, they still think Myles is going to be, if not the best defensive player in the league, still at an elite level. And I completely agree with that. So if you think Myles is going to be that type of player when you're ready to make your run, then how do you trade the best defensive player in the history of the franchise and the best defensive player in the league? It would take an unbelievably successful trade for you to be better as a team than you are when you have Myles Garrett.
I agree with that.
Go ahead.
I'm just going to – where does this put Todd Monken then as we walk into the season? Because if Todd walks away with a 3-win season and you just talked about an owner that, you talked about his appetite, this is a tough place to be.
You're exactly right. Now, I think Todd Monken, at 60 years old and the first time being a head coach, he doesn't have an appetite for a rebuild either. And
True.
He's coming in expecting to win. Everybody wants to win, but he's expecting to win. He thinks he can improve this offense where it makes a difference in the win-loss column. So I think they're on the same page. But to your point, Andy, you're 100% right that puts a lot of pressure on him. And, if you play these scenarios out, if you don't win more than 5 games like the owner thinks you should, then what happens? Do you go get a new coach? Is there a total blow up of the front office, right, in the coaching staff? I mean, that's not outlandish. We've seen it in this league. We've seen it with this organization.
We like playing games here on Basket and Phelps. Last week we looked at what is sitting here at quarterback right now and kind of compared it to some of the others, and we figure it's about one of the worst 5 situations at quarterback in the NFL right now. How does Jimmy Haslam expect them to win more than 5 games with that quarterback situation, unless you just keep your fingers crossed and think, come on, Shedeur, come on, Deshaun, let's go. You guys can get her done.
It's a great question. I think if you're Haslam, you go, okay, can the quarterback situation be any worse than it was last year? And the answer is probably not.
Probably not.
So you won 5 games that way and felt you should have won a couple more. If the defense plays as well, if the quarterback plays a little better, if the guys around the quarterback are better, maybe you can win with the bottom. Maybe you can win enough or win more with a bottom 5 quarterback situation. And now it's really difficult to do that. I think you're hoping it's either Shedeur or, Shedeur makes an improvement, or Deshaun Watson shows more of the form that he was before he got here.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's the optimistic view. That's the hope. But if you're talking about how this season goes sideways, it's because you don't get that quarterback play, and it's really difficult to win with poor quarterback play, and then you're looking at 3, 4, 5 wins again.
It looks like this is at a quarterback, right? I don't see anything stunning that's coming down the road that other than Deshaun and Shedeur fighting it out. Would you agree?
I think they draft somebody.
Okay.
I don't know if that draft pick is a factor in the starting job, right? I mean, I think he enters the competition, and depending if it's Ty Simpson at 39, then it's interesting, and I think that's a possibility. If it's Drew Aller in the 4th or 5th round, then I don't think he's really in the mix to be the starter. So my guess is it's Shedeur and Deshaun, but I think it's probably premature to say that nobody gets added to that mix. But whoever gets added would probably be a long shot.
Hit him straight, my friend.
Gonna try. Thanks, fellas.
Hot
Scott
dog at
Petrak.
the turn. Get a good hot dog at the turn.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Brownzone.com.